and Karina, they used to go there too before coming here to second.
Oh, did it? Okay, okay, I know that. Okay, got you. Yeah.
I think he was I think they were both part of the music ministry.
Okay. Yeah, yes, that is right.
Okay, you're live, so you can talk a little bit before we start.
And you can't see me in it because I'm on my computer.
And I was gonna say about that church, just talking about the church again. One day I was there for the 7 words, and a lady had a heart attack, and there happened to be a nurse there, and she was working on it, and I never heard so many people praying at the same time. All you heard was people just praying. The lady woke up and said, "Where's my wig?" The only thing she wanted was her wig. The lady
Thank God she woke up.
She brought her back to life.
Yeah, she wanted to know where her wig was.
Where's
Yeah.
my wig? But
Yeah.
anyway,
Okay.
move this back a little bit.
Get ready, you be the leader, as always. You're the leader.
Come on in. Come on in. Okay, good morning. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Portsmouth Coffee Talks reading. Let's see, Men Reading Book Club. And we're here today, and we're gonna discuss the novel James. And those who are not familiar with James, the novel James, it is sort of like a after read for the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And it's told from the slave Jim, if you're familiar with that, slave Jim's, his perspective of that whole adventure that Huckleberry Finn went to. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and we'll get started with the discussion.
Go ahead, Tony.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Tony Diggs. It's good to be here.
And I'm Terrence, member of the Men Read Book Club.
What's up? My name is London Diggs, and I'm a college graduate from Boone State University, theater major, business minor, a student athlete as well, ran track.
There you go, there you go, there you go, there you go.
And of course, you can't see me, but I'm Slim Overton from Portsmouth Coffee Talk. So I'm gonna try to get everybody in focus there. But see some people tuning in. But anyway, Tony, get started. Get us started there with the conversation.
To let everybody know what we read and before you dive in to or leading the discussion. There you go.
Oh yeah, I thought this was definitely. I really enjoyed this book. My wife even actually read it too. Back during the snow days, and she's a book reader, but she really enjoyed the book. So she read it in like 2 or 3 days or so. But it kept me riveted personally from beginning to end. How things were gonna. I was like, man, how's this going to end? How's this going to end? But it's a historical fiction book, but I thought it had a lot of good points, a lot of good talking points, and I really enjoyed it personally.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add to what Tony is saying. For me, it was a very painful read, however, a very necessary read. Like Slim said, it was the book James, the Huck Finn story, Huckleberry Finn and the enslaved person, Jim. But this is from Jim's perspective, but I'll call him James because in the story, he referred to himself as James instead of Jim. In the Huck Finn story, he went by Jim, or the folks called him Jim, but here he's telling his story and he went by, James. So it was an adventure from his vantage point of traveling with Huck Finn and always on the run, searching for his freedom. So again, for me, it was a painful read. One of the other members who's not here, unfortunately, chose this book, and but I'm glad I read it. It was painful, but I'm glad I read it. So we'll that was just my take on it.
First, I'd like to say this is something that the Printed Word Bookstore does on a regular basis. Men get together and pick a book and read and discuss it. And if you want to be a part of this, get in touch with the Printed Word Bookstore out here in the city of, the great city of Portsmouth, Virginia. And we out here in Churchland where this young man went to Churchland High School. You know.
As per his shirt there, yeah.
We were looking for him at IC Norfolk, but Churchland got him, but that's okay. But anyway, if you want to be a part of Men Reading, just contact them, or if you're not in town, do something like this for yourself. It's a good example for our young people to see men actually reading, and it's a nice getaway when you need to relax and relieve the stress. Sit down and read a book. But anyway, I enjoyed the book. It was I don't remember reading The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but I remember seeing the movie. And listening to people that read the book said you don't have to read it, but it helps if you read Huckleberry Finn or you're kind of familiar with the story. The story goes that the author read Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, about 12 times. So when he wrote his book, it could kind of, it would all fall in sync with what the story Jim was telling, or James was telling. So that's my take on it so far, and we get into a discussion. Let's see what the young man from Bowie State has to say.
I don't really have a lot at the moment. I know Dad, he told me about the book and everything, to get through the first chapter. I didn't get to really finish it, but I know reading it through the first chapter, I know it's like a strong story within the story. I want to say that something that is important to learn how, I guess, like an example of how life was back then, there was like slavery or anything like that. So, because it's important to learn like what went on within our culture back then, something that should like never be forgotten. And I feel like that's definitely a story that is trying to be persuaded in here.
And I want to add something too. Oh my goodness, the thought just slipped my mind. What was I going to say in regards to this? Oh my goodness, yeah. What was it? It was something I was going to say. It'll come to me. Yeah, it'll come to me. But we always lead off our discussions with Brother Tony here, because he, as you see in front of me, he takes notes. So as he's reading, he's taking notes. So when we have our book discussions, and this is, I think, about the 6th or 7th book we've read. We've read several books, but we wanted to highlight this one. Oh yeah, I know what I meant to say. This was the national bestseller also too. This book was a national bestseller, last year. So I just wanted to, highlight that. So this book was hot on the, it was hot on the shelves, and we've even sold a few here out of our store here. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Tony.
So we still have copies?
Yes, still do. Yeah, we still do. Over here at the Printed Word, 5901 Churchland Boulevard. All right, go ahead, Tony.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Brother Terrence. I know initially you talked about how it was a painful read for you. I know that this is, sometimes I like pointing out things that I noticed throughout the book, but this is on page 35. James, he felt, this is when he found out he was about to be maybe moved to, or sold and going to New Orleans.
Right.
So he felt rage. Unfortunately, he was unable to express that rage because he was enslaved. So I guess I was wondering, like how do we, or first, should we express or should we suppress our rage? And if we express our rage, how should we express it?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure back in those days, expressing how you really felt, showing emotions, being outwardly,
Could get you to whip.
Yeah, could get you to whip, get you killed, get you, hanging from the end of a rope. So,
Strange fruit.
Yeah, strange fruit. So, back then, it had to be unfortunate. And there were a lot of cues, in regards to what you just said throughout this book. But yeah, back then it wasn't safe to share your real feelings or share your emotions. In this day and time, and this is the counselor in me, it's not good to suppress your emotions and feelings. You have to get that stuff out, because that stuff will, lead to, mental illness, and it can lead to suicide and suicidal ideation, and homicidal ideation, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not good to, keep your emotions in. But yeah, nowadays, and we can do that, you can outwardly express your emotions, you still have to be careful. But, you know, back then, yeah, it wasn't safe to, share emotions and outwardly, you know, really express how you felt, because again, you know, it could get you killed. Yeah, it could get you killed.
And I think they found ways to do that through songs.
Songs, right.
And several other things.
Music,
they did,
drums,
drums,
all of that,
and
yeah.
that's how they communicated
Mhm.
and got, you know, some of that stress off, you know, because they had to conform to the times.
Exactly,
And
exactly,
Jim was no exception.
right.
I know definitely, I want to say through dancing as well.
Mhm.
People can definitely, you know, go through stress and go through everything they have within themselves, through dancing, because dancing also tells a story, you know, because of course music, singing and everything, but I know like dance, so different other ways, you know, you can tell, their stories, probably through drawings and paintings as well, because different, color schemes, different ways somebody want to present a certain picture, it can have 1,000 meanings within just one picture you're looking at and everything. So that is important. And also good ways just to like get emotions out of you and everything like that.
And that's a good point.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
and just another discussion, but quilting, back in the day, they did the quilts. That's how they communicated and also released some of the stress.
What made that stick out for you, Tony? I mean, you come up with great questions, great points, but what made that stick out for you? Why did that stick out for you?
I think for me, because I know I'm an introvert, so I don't normally, like, I'm not all that expressive like a lot of people are. So I'm used to like being stoic and keeping things in. But I know that's not always a positive thing
Right.
necessarily.
Right.
I know we need to have ways to, you know, if you have ways to express it in a way that's positive and healthy. Yeah, that's what kind of brought it on.
Okay.
Could y'all see in a way that Jim relieved his stress? I guess him knowing that he was not inferior to them like he thought, because he had to, like we mentioned before, he had to sort of code switch, which is the term you use now.
Yeah.
You know, code switching, it depends on your environment. You learn how to talk a certain way, and he talked a certain way. He was James,
Right.
and then he was Jim.
It was Jim, right, yeah. So he knew how to play both sides to keep keep himself alive.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
as he did throughout the story, and
I think that was gratifying.
yeah, that
knowing
was.
that he was.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was good with what I call now compartmentalization. He knew when to act and carry himself a certain way. He knew when to say when, or he knew when to do when. Again, how would I put it? To stay alive. Because again, he was often, you know, caught in situations where he had to play a role, to survive. And this was a man that was always on the run. Again, he left, out of a situation. I hope I'm not jumping too far for what question Tony's gonna ask. But he left a situation because, you know, he just didn't wanna, you know, be sold to another family. He wanted to, you know, stay with his family, stick with his family. So, you know, he did what he had to do to, you know, to survive and kind of protect himself, you know, so.
And of course, later in the book, he slipped a few times.
Yeah, he did, he slipped there, boarded a few
People didn't
times,
know,
yeah.
what did you just
Yeah,
say?
exactly, yeah. He
That
slipped.
didn't sound like.
Yeah, because he was an educated man. He knew how to read, knew how to write.
Self-educated.
Yeah, he was self-educated. Yeah, he was self-educated, and those were things that could get you, you know, killed back then.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing how to read and write, and so.
And one key, I guess it's the key thing, like, in the book, is that, Jim, or, you know, they have different, escapades going on throughout the book, but Jim, you know, he's, to Huck, it's an adventure, but for Jim, it's like survival, you know, stuff that he's going, so Huck's looking at it through, hey, this is fun, this is, you know, like a game, so to speak, you know, like, you know, but it's different if your life is on the line.
Exactly.
You know, that's what,
Which it was for James. His life was constantly on the line. Yeah, constantly.
Right, this is a little bit later. If you know the story, young George, he was the one that gave James or Jim the pencil. He stole the pencil, I think, and gave it to James. And then James asked the question. He says, he's talking to young George, and James says, how do you suggest I tell my story? then young George says, you tell the story with your ears, you know, you listen.
Mhm.
So, so even like now in today's society, I don't know if people listen, you know, well, or people just want to keep talking and talking, but can we tell our story? Do we tell our stories? But can we tell it better by only listening, or is it just like talking, trying to get everybody to say all their words out? You know,
I'll let you take a stab at that first, man.
Yeah, I think listening is important because listening sort of helps create your thoughts and what you're gonna say next, you know? And that's the case now. A lot of people say we don't listen enough. Or they might say young people don't listen. But I disagree with that. I think they listen. So a lot of people my age and my generation don't listen. So,
True.
yeah, listening is the key.
It's key, yeah.
And it's almost like a skill.
Right. And James in the story,
Yeah,
James
everybody
had,
has that.
yeah, he had the skill of listening, which, you know, kept him alive and allowed him to know when it was time to be on the move, when it was time to run, when it was time to seek shelter, when it was time to, how'd I put it, come in, you know, in fear of being captured and maybe being seen. So, yeah, he was a good listener because that led to him, you know, being able to survive, you know, in the trenches that he was in while he was on the run. So, yeah.
You're right. I remember there was a part in the book where I think he said like he was listening out for the birds in
Right.
the trees. He said, if I hear the birds,
Right.
Maybe there's like people not around.
Not
you know,
around,
so,
right,
like,
right.
it's,
There you
listen,
go.
listen to nature.
Yeah,
You know?
that goes back to
Great
like what you're
example.
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a skill. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a skill.
Andrew has a comment, Drew.
Okay.
Online.
Okay.
He said the thing that runs through his mind is the audacity of people to think they have the right to own other humans.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's true. True statement. True statement. Yeah.
That sums up slavery.
Yeah.
And that's-
Being enslaved.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
the audacity of it.
Mhm.
You know, there were a couple of con men in this book, King and Duke,
Mhm.
you know, and they told lies to their audience. This is in page 126. And James says, he says in the slave vernacular, but I'm kind of paraphrasing it.
Mhm.
And he basically says, why do people hold onto lies and throw away the truth?
Mhm.
You know, and I think a lot of times we think, you know,
So much of that goes
Yeah,
on
goes
today.
on, yeah,
So much of
you
that
know.
goes on today. Yeah.
Mhm.
There you go. So much of that.
yeah. Well, I don't know what causes that, but I guess everybody thinks their side is right or something like that. But
And you just think about the present administration.
Yeah. There you go. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. There's a lot
I
of
had to
yeah.
throw that in there.
Yeah. Oh,
We're
yeah.
still talking about James, y'all.
Yeah. Still talking about
All right.
James. Yeah.
It was just a lot of propaganda or something like that,
Mhm.
things like that. I don't know, I feel like people do that just to make something sound good or just to hide a reality of something going on.
What's really happening.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but what's really happening so people don't have to worry or like, think of anything wrong with it. And then once that surprise happens and it's alive the whole time, then that's when everything just goes off the rails after that.
And some of it is a fear tactic too.
Yeah.
Some of it is a outright fear tactic. Power and control, to have power and have control. And, again, there was a lot of instances in the book where, you know, James was keen enough. He was keen enough, and he was very tactical to manage those situations to, again, know when it's time to, okay, I'm gonna play the role long enough till I make my getaway, you know, till I, how would I put it, you know, get back on the move, you know, headed for my destination, you know, seeking freedom, you know, trying to get north, so, so there was a lot of that,
Something that was amazing to me, those guys that were chasing
Mhm.
the slave chasers, or just regular guys that would see a black and say, hey, what's your name? And
Right,
where you going?
yeah,
The way he dealt with those
Right.
guys, you know, even when they said, you talking smart to me?
Right.
It was how calm he
the calm
was,
was, right.
and
right.
just turned the whole conversation
Yeah,
into.
yeah. Very measured, he was
Yeah,
very measured,
yeah, because it could have gone south
exactly.
according to the way he reacted
Yeah.
to them.
Mhm.
And he was just calm and just turned it right back at them, where
Right,
they said, you know,
Right.
had them thinking,
right.
you know, or calmed them down in some kind of way.
He was able
That's
to,
amazing.
he was able to manage himself out of a lot of situations, you know.
Yep.
A lot of different, you know, situations, and, you know, another thing that comes to mind too in his travels, you know, again, as he was, you know, seeking freedom, and he was looking for his wife and his daughter who had been sold. The family had been broken up, and he was in search of them. But just, how would I put it, in his trials and his travels, you know, the ability to find food, to hunt for food, the ability to, you know, take care of himself, you know, after, you know, different run-ins and snake bites, just the resiliency
And
that he
what,
had.
you know, get some mud.
Mud, right,
To
uh-huh.
cover a
Cover
wound or
up a
something
wound
like
and
that.
things like that, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's very resilient, very resilient.
Could that come from his African roots?
I would say so, yeah.
Cause I don't
would
know,
say
this
so.
is centuries after the slaves, you know, came,
Right,
you know, but still they had some of those African roots that
Mhm.
taught them how to survive.
those old remedies that had
Yeah.
been passed down, you know, yeah.
And next, oh, hey, Tab, was it Daniel that had a comment? Was that you?
That was Drew.
Oh, I'm sorry, Drew. Okay, I'm sorry, Drew.
And he also mentioned that, like, now we're still dealing with the
Mhm.
ramifications of it now.
Right.
And he said it is a painful reminder of the shameful history of our nation.
Oh, yeah.
Part things that people want to still try to erase to this day, things that happen or don't believe that it happened.
Right,
Mm.
right.
Yeah, it's amazing how this book was set in a completely different century, and we're still dealing
Still dealing
with
with
some
that.
of the things today, and you have some people trying to bring it back to that, so.
Oh, yeah.
Now, and along those same lines, the next question or observation I have, first I'm gonna get London, if you can turn to page 176. It's the last sentence in page 176. If you can read that last sentence and give me your thought. This is, James, or Jim, he's thinking, I just wanna see what you have to, get your, you know, your opinion on that, on his thoughts.
Okay, you said 176?
Yes, the last sentence. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay. A man who refused to own slaves but was not opposed to others owning slaves was still a slaver, to my thinking. So basically what I got from this, yeah, if a man, you know, doesn't own slaves, okay, that's cool or whatever, but if you're watching like another man own slaves, or you're not like stepping up, like basically like stepping up for a bully, you know, well, somebody that's being bullied like in school or something, I'm seeing it as like you're a part of the problem.
You're condoning.
Yeah, you're condoning it, like you're not trying to make that change to break a curse that's happening at that moment. So you are like, I do feel like he is right within this quote, because it feels like you're a part of the problem. You're not trying to like stop it and fix it. If you're gonna keep doing the same thing and not gonna step in and like change the whole way it's gonna turn from now on from that instance. Yeah.
It's kind of like, you know, so many people said nothing when they had separate water fountains back in the day, you know, colored fountain and the fountain for other people, you know, and a lot of people knew that was wrong, but they said nothing. So, you know, they were complicit. They were okay with it going on, so they kind of co-signed it. So you're right. So that's what comes to mind for me when I saw that. Yeah, you may not have been a slave owner, but you know, didn't do anything about it, but yet you still benefited from it as well too. You still benefited. Yeah.
Yeah, because one person can make a difference, you know, if they try to make it, they can make a stand, you know.
And those people back in those times were called the abolitionists, the ones that were against it. Yeah, and spoke up and did something. So there were a lot of folks that were against that did do things. You know, those were folks that were, you know, part of the Underground Railroad that helped us hide, that gave us, you know, shelter when we needed it, gave us food and clothing and goods and supplies to kind of help make the journey. So you did have some people out there that were, you know, good people. So
Yeah.
but then you had others that were complicit and
Had
did
a
nothing
sense
to
of
their head.
humanity.
Yeah, it's just humanity. Yeah.
And those are the ones that helped change the world. Because imagine if abolitionists were not there back then, would the world still be how it was back then
Right.
today?
Right.
If they did not step up to make that change, you know,
A lot of them paid the ultimate price too.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah, a lot of sacrifices for that, you know, for a better future, you know, so.
What did y'all think about in the Ventures of Huckleberry Finn, the N-word was used a lot, and it was used here. What did y'all think about that? I mean, I think it was kind of necessary to kind of tell the story, and it was language that was used then. But some people, I've watched some people say, I just didn't like seeing that word used on it, but you know.
That's how it was.
The book takes you back to that time, and that's how it
Right.
was.
That's how it was, yeah.
I know, culturally, I guess it was obviously more accepted then than it would be now, but, I know it's easy to get offended now, sometimes when you look back at history, but that's kind of how things were, so to speak, but, yeah, sometimes we have to look at things through how it was, not just through our 21st century blinders that we have on.
And sometimes James did try to correct Huck, you know, when he used that.
Yeah, I don't want, like, don't sugarcoat nothing, just keep it, I wanna keep authentic of how it was, like,
Yeah.
I don't want nobody beating around the bush, I feel like, you
That'll
know,
take away the effect.
yeah, it's gonna
of
take
telling the
everything away.
story.
Yeah, definitely, it's gonna take things away, like, I'd rather just you seeing it than just like thinking how it was if it's not used 100% of how, you know, it happened and everything, so.
And it's still out there.
Oh, yeah, still out there, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I see it as, you can see it as, like if you're playing a sport or something like football practice or something like that, getting ready for a big game or something, you can't just be all week at practice just going 50%, you know, and not giving it full speed because, you know, you don't want to hurt somebody, do this, that, and the third, but you have to be 100% effective at practice to be 100% effective in the game. So I see it as the same thing, give it 100%. So with this, you know, you might have to just read it and understand. It might be bad words or anything, and that's fine, but you have to see 100% of how it was back then.
Right.
So I see it, you know, just like that as well.
Right.
You know.
And what comes to mind for me now, I remember, I'm from Cleveland, but I used to spend summers in South Carolina. I used to spend summers in South Carolina as a small kid, and it was just like yesterday. I can remember in my grandmother's neighborhood there was the private school. It was a private school that was separate from the public schools that all my friends and family members and cousins went to. But there was a private school in our neighborhood, and that's where all the the kids that didn't look like us went. But they had the good playground. They had the good seesaws and sliding board and swing sets and all that. And we used to go down there from time to time to play. And I never forget this one day we were down there, and I can still picture it. We were down there playing. It was about 4 of us, and this was back in the late '70s. And this station wagon pulled up, and this old white man drove up, and he just kind of parked and he looked at us and he just said, that stuff don't belong to y'all, don't belong to y'all. And I think we ignored him. And he said it again. And one of the older kids that was with us, Jerome said, hey y'all, come on, let's go. We don't want his kind. We don't want no trouble from him. And he said to the white man, he said, okay, I heard you. We're gonna go. And I remember walking away, because here me, little kid in my grandmother's neighborhood down south, but I live in suburban Cleveland, I didn't understand what he was saying, but later on that afternoon, my grandfather explained to me. He said, yeah, they don't want y'all down there, and y'all to not cause any trouble or bring any harm to yourself, let them have that stuff. But I couldn't quite understand, what that, meant, that stuff don't belong to y'all. But then, I was real young then, but I spent every summer there. But as how would I put it? Aged and, got a little older and more experiences down there in South Carolina, I can, it kind of all started, coming into play. And then as I, grew and, got older, I was educated on really what that meant. But I remember that, and again, he didn't call us no name, and he just said that stuff don't belong to y'all, And and later on, I'd say about maybe 20 plus years past that, my second cousin, my younger cousin, was the first person that looked like us to graduate from that school, to graduate from that school.
Poetic justice.
Yeah, poetic justice. And my cousin that I speak of, he's a PhD on top of that, so good for him, So yeah, my cousin, that same, fella who said, hey, y'all don't belong there, my cousin eventually graduated from that school and, is highly educated. So there you go.
And shout out to him.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you talk about that as a young kid, I went through that too.
Mhm.
You know, kind of grew up at the end of the Jim Crow era where certain theaters we couldn't go to downtown.
Okay.
But I was young, didn't understand it.
Right, right.
And to get back to Huck, he, even though he used the N-word, but I think he was a product of his environment because you can see he really saw everybody as pretty much the same, especially Jim. And he just was in that environment, and what he heard, he repeated. But he kind of saw everybody mostly the same.
Okay.
And that's how it was for us growing up. We didn't understand, and as we got older, we understood what that word meant.
Right, yeah.
But, you know, it was just the sign of the times, and that wasn't during these days.
Gotcha.
This was during the 70s, this was
Gotcha.
during the 60s and 70s, well,
Okay.
for me, 60s.
Okay. Yeah, it was the late 70s for me, and even to add to that, I can remember also too, and I learned my work ethic from spending summers in South Carolina. I learned my work ethic because we used to work in tobacco fields. And I remember the pickup truck used to come through the neighborhood, and you know, most of the boys that lived in that neighborhood, you know, had to go to work, and then my cousins, you know, had to go to work. So my granddaddy said, "You be on the back of that truck too. You be on the back of that truck too. And no need you being around here while everybody else is working." And I got on the back of that truck, and you know, we used to, you know, go out on the Sumter Highway and work in the tobacco fields. And I remember the first check I got. This was in the late 70s. I got a check for $2. $2. Now back then too, yeah, for $2, and I was happy, man. I was, baby, I don't know how old I was, but maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. But I got a check for $2.
That was good money.
Yeah, it was good money.
It was actually a check.
Hey, and my granddaddy was proud of me. Yeah, it was a check. It was written out. I don't even know if I had a name on it, but I remember I had $2. And my granddaddy said, "Hey, you earned that." And them boys that didn't get on the truck and go, that don't you buy them nothing at the store. Because we, you know, at the end of the day when we came home, we spent that on candy and bubble gum and all that. But yeah, I got my first check for $2. And I worked at the barn. The bigger boys, yeah, the bigger boys and the men worked out in the field. They were called the field hands. They drove the tractor, and you would put the tobacco on the drag and bring it to the barn. And the small kids like myself and the women worked at the barn and used to take, you know, three stalks at a time and hand it to the woman, and she would tie it to the stick. And then once the stick got loaded, there was like a working party. This is my Navy talking, working party of loading those sticks into the barn. You know, and it would be a guy in the top of that barn. It'd be burning up hot. It'd be a wasp nest up there, but you'd hand him up the tobacco and they'd hang it in the barn. Yeah, so, but I remember snakes in there, yeah, snakes and wasps in there. But yeah, that was hard work. But that's where I learned my work ethic. You know, as a small kid. Yeah.
I have to say this
summers,
to the audience watching. You know, and this is why it's so important to have these book discussions, because it creates other conversations that men can have, sharing their experiences. And we have a young man sitting here. Now that was funny to him getting a check for $2, but that was good money.
Yeah,
That was good money back then.
Sure was.
All we did was buy
bubble gum and candy, nab crackers, yeah,
and have you know,
Sprite
bad
soda.
teeth later on. But, you know, it's just sparks good conversations and men get to know each other and know the commonality that they share. You know, especially in certain generations. I'm older than everybody, but I remember some of the things you're talking about, and you enlightened me of what's going on in your world.
Yeah.
You know, and it's pretty similar, but you know, it's a whole different thing. So that's why it's so important. We're talking about James, but we're talking about life as well.
Sure is.
I appreciate your comments too. I can't see it from here, but see people are making the comments. And, yeah.
And that kind of makes me think of something too. I remember this was like mid-80s, 84, 85. I was watching, it was a video by a group named Taco, music video. And it had a song in there, and I really liked the song. And I memorized the song. I was like a senior or junior in high school. Because back then, you know, you had tape recorders. You had to like, you know, you couldn't do it on demand now. You had to like tape it when it came on TV, and then play it back. So I kind of memorized the lyrics, and I remember the video. But then I saw that same video like a few years ago, and this kind of is going to lead to the next observation. But it actually had black face in that video, and I didn't realize that. Wasn't really cognizant of it back then, 84, 85, but looking at it now, I said, oh man, I can't believe I wasn't offended by it, it was just like, you know.
Well, let me tell you this, and Terrence might remember this, how racist cartoons were back in the day.
Yeah.
They had we were always portrayed by monkeys with big lips, and we sat down and enjoyed it on Saturday morning. And then you got on and said, wait a minute, Walt Disney?
Yeah.
And come to find out, Walt Disney was a big racist, but all his cartoons depicted us as monkeys or crows, anything black. And it was amazing, and how we didn't actually pick up on that then because we were young. But I know our parents did, but they just let us enjoy enjoy the moment.
There you go, yeah.
But you don't want to see one of those now, do you?
No.
It's like that video,
Yeah, that's true.
you were clapping to it.
No,
Yeah, you still were. He's still right there.
There you were.
Yeah.
Now, one of the characters, because this is a historical fiction book, but one of the people notated is Daniel Decatur Emmett. And it actually is a real person, was a real person.
Okay.
And he was the person that actually wrote the Dixie, the song, I Wish I Wasn't Dixie.
Okay.
But anyway, and some of the songs are mentioned in the front of the book, in the excerpts in the very beginning. But anyway, Norman, we may talk about Norman a little bit later. Norman saw James writing and suggested he write poetry like Emmett. And then Emmett and his show songs are obviously in blackface and it's mocking black people. But James got a copy. There was a point in the story when James got the notebook that's talked about in the front of the book, and James thought about tearing out the songs and tearing it up and burning them. But then he thought that they would still exist, even if he did burn them up. He says like these crackers will still sing them. It's better to know that they exist. Don't you think? And I guess one of the questions I thought about, was about history. Now, like, should history or the horrors of history, should it be forgotten? Should it be taught in schools, or should it be passed down in conversations? Or I was trying to see what you guys thought was the best way to recognize horrors of history.
Yeah.
A big subject even today.
Yeah.
The ban of the books.
Banning of books, yeah.
And some of the white people saying they don't want their children to be embarrassed or upset because of, but history is history.
History is history, yeah.
Black history is American history,
There is.
and it should be told, just like they tell any other story about European history. How great was all of that?
Right,
Sometimes,
right.
Doing some of those crusades they used to have where they killed a lot of people, or burying witches, just because somebody said so.
Yeah, let real true history be taught, told. Yeah, let it be told, yeah.
It has to be told.
Yeah, I know I agree with that 100%. It should be told. Like I said, I was a theater major, graduated at Bowie State, business minor, and I know one of my papers I did for my theater classes, I wanted to present a topic: should lynching plays still be told today in this world? And I was for that because, like I said, I don't want none of us to forget what happened to us, and how did those different problems and conflicts back then shape us to who to how we grew out today. Because it just should not be forgotten, because all that stuff happened to us, and it's important to know, like, that happened. And we feel bad for that. Others can feel bad, but at the end of the day, we should still learn from it and to know, like, that way back then was wrong, and we need to move from that and keep getting better from there. Because even outside of lynching plays, or just like slavery in general, police brutality, things like that, that should never be forgotten. That should always be talked about. Like for George Floyd, like that changed or shaped like how the world was doing 2020. That made a whole U-turn. And also just different like big events, like like 9/11 or the Boston Massacre, I believe, the Boston Marathon Massacre, things like that, or just different topics like that. That should not be forgotten, because that definitely changed like the world at that time, and a lot of people talked about it, and it's just something that should just keep not something like that.
Just like you mentioned George Floyd. The incident that really bothered me was Ahmaud Arbery that happened down in Georgia. The young man that was just jogging through the neighborhood, and those two felt, the father and son felt it was their right to run him down and question him about some things that had happened in the community, and eventually, led to killing
Something
him.
that probably would happen.
Yeah, something that did happen.
That did happen.
And that's where it came from.
Yeah.
That's where that stuff came from, how would I put it? Slave catchers and people out catching people and chasing people down, and same thing happened that was in 2000, that was 2019, 18, 19, 20 when that happened with Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, in Brunswick, Georgia. He was just jogging through a neighborhood, and again, there was some houses being built in that area, and yes, granted, there was times where on his jog, he was walking around, looking through the house. He didn't do anything, didn't take anything.
I would have done that.
Yeah, didn't do
I'm
anything,
sure.
and other people do that too, but they don't get run down and shot, by, two people that later tried to cover it up. As a matter of fact, I need to follow that case, cause that attorney that they reached out to right after it happened that tried to cover it up, she's on trial.
Mhm.
She's headed to trial, and I need to, follow up on that, but that really bothered me, what happened to the late Ahmaud Arbery, who was just jogging and, got killed, yeah, so there you go. Yeah. There's tons of instances.
I think our generation we were surprised. I think we were more surprised that it's still happening.
Mhm.
We knew things were happening, and thank goodness for the cell phone and things like that, because that's been happening forever, it just hasn't been recorded.
Right.
So now that they're catching it, and it seems like, wow, that's amazing, but it's always been happening.
I know, London, I know you did I went up to Bowie one time and saw you in a play, called Buy Black.
Yeah, Bob Black,
Yeah.
we don't sell to your kind.
Yeah, B-U-Y, Buy is spelled B-U-Y, Buy Black.
Yeah.
But if you mind, could you tell maybe a little bit about, the summarize of what that play was about?
Yeah, so this was a student play, directed and made by students back at Bowie State. This came out in 2023. My writer was shout out to Raymond Ingram. He's one of my guys from back in school and everything. Basically, the play Buy Black, We Don't Sell to Your Kind is basically a gentrification story. So it's just about 6 workers working at a place called Prince and Kids, like a shoe and clothing store. And then we fall into like a conflict where somebody comes into like our neighborhood and our community, and then our story talking about basically we're losing our business, we gotta just move out, or consequences will be dealt regardless. So then we have to like live with those conflicts, and then see how our lives were after our Prince and Kick store was basically in the realm of being getting shut down and everything. And that was probably like one of my top, one of my favorite plays I ever did. Another one was like Merce mentioned, Mr. Uno, like a little comedy horror type of play I did back in high school. But it was definitely important. We won different awards when we went up to KCACTF festival up in Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh. Won like 3 different awards when we performed it. Definitely opened up our eyes to like how the world, how gentrification was, because that is important. Like different communities being taken down. I know we was talking about one of the parts where you said Central Park and Seneca Village.
Yeah, Seneca Village.
Yeah, that was what we were talking about, Seneca Village, and how it was a community for Black people, and then it just got wiped away, and then just used that to, nope, we're gonna make a park right here, whether you like it or you don't, we just gotta get out of here, and like gentrification is it is messed up, but what we can do is just adjust to it, but that should not be forgotten.
Right.
How we live in these communities and then just get shut down just like that, no matter what.
Yeah, but back in the day, they would just go in there like Tulsa and bomb it, or Rosewood, and take it over. But then in the modern days, they found a eminent domain or something like that. They found different ways to come in and urban renewal, they used to call it. And they would tear down the neighborhood and say, fix it up, y'all can come back.
Right.
But by the time they fix it up, who could afford it?
Right.
And
Not us, or not the people that originally lived there.
Right.
And Seneca Village, they actually started in 1825. I did some research and I was kind of curious about it, because I learned that during the play, they gave a shout out to Seneca Village. I said, I've never heard of this place before. the Seneca Village is from 82nd to 89th Street. Central Park is, I believe it's from 59th to 106. So part of Central Park is smaller portion of it is Seneca Village. It was about 225 people lived there, mostly African Americans, and they weren't squatters. They weren't people who just lived there or squatted there. They actually had homes. Like most of them had like two-story homes. But through, as you mentioned, eminent domain, like they had to move out. I think it was like 1857 is when they had legislation. Everybody had to move out or forced out, basically. And that's what happened. That's where. So part of Seneca Village is Central Park now. No, unfortunately, but it's a shame.
They had the vision that we want Central Park to be, and that was in the way.
Yeah, that was in the way.
They wanted to be a place for
And then
everybody. That was in the way.
And then people who did own homes, they did get value for it, but I'm pretty sure it was undervalued. Like they didn't give them what it was worth. They gave them, if it was worth this much, they gave them less. They didn't give them true value of what that land was worth. But it's unfortunate things like that happen.
And anybody that's watching that's not from this area, Portsmouth, Virginia, it happened here. It was a town called, area called Lincolnville. Remember Lincolnville? You don't remember Lincolnville? It was right beside where Old Town is now. So they came in and said, okay, urban renewal, we need to come in here and do some things. And that's where Portsmouth General Hospital ended up being, and things like that. And so they moved all those people out. The only house that's standing there is Dr. Mayor Holly's house.
Okay.
Because they saved it as a shrine. But nobody was able to come back. So Lincoln, what did I say, Lincoln?
Lincolnville,
yeah. Wow.
That was the original Portsmouth.
Yeah,
Like the
it was
OG.
part of, it was a black neighborhood.
Okay.
South Side, they got rid of that. So close to home.
I think the last observation I think I wrote down has to do with kind of naming yourself. This is kind of near the end of the book. Skipping ahead, this is like page 303. James and his family, they make it safely to Iowa, and he sees a sheriff, and the sheriff, they ask, say, who are you? That's what the sheriff asks, and then James says, James, just James. That's kind of basically how the book ends. And it kind of makes me think of, like my name, Anthony Peter Diggs. Like sometimes, I know the power of naming myself. Like if somebody calls me Anthony, I know they pretty much met me when I was like in high school or younger. Some people call me AP. If they call me that, they knew me in college, like specifically like through my college years. But most people know me as Tony. So I kind of can tell this by what they call me, how when they first met me. Like I knew this girl. Well, I still know her now. I met her. Her name was Jewel. Well, she was introduced to me as Jewel. I didn't know that was her self-described name. It wasn't her real name, but she had bad relationships. And he said, I feel I'm a Jewel now. So I'm gonna start calling myself Jewel, so that she got to get away from the bad relationship that she's had. So there is I think a power, when we can of naming yourself, of taking control of your name.
Because in the book, they were looking for a runaway slave by the name of Jim. And again, that's how people referred to him, just like I shared the story the other day. I spent 23 years in the Navy, and certain people, my name is Terrence, and people call me T, but there was a certain segment of people that wanted to shorten Terrence to Terry, call me Terry. And my name ain't Terry, but I would say either call me T or Terrence, and like the example you said, they call you Terry. In the book here, his name was James. It was James. However, they were looking for a runaway slave named Jim. He said, my name is James. So basically what he was saying is, I'm not who you're looking for. I'm James. Okay, whoever that Jim is, go find Jim. I'm James.
My name happens to be James, and I described before how people would ask me, white people, I'll say it that way, would ask me, what do you want to be called? James or Jim? And I say James, and they say, okay, Jim.
There you go.
They call me. And I think what you choose to call yourself should be respected.
Right, there you go.
If you want to call yourself a booger, You know,
Right.
and we'll call you Booger,
Right,
you know,
right.
or whatever you, feel like you wanna call
Yeah,
yourself.
like the late great Joe Madison used to always say, never allow yourself to be undervalued, underestimated, or marginalized, you know? Don't, you know, my name is James, so call me James. My name is Terrence, so call me
Just like
Terrence.
in the
If you ask,
movie, in the
and I
Heat of
tell
the
you.
Night,
Uh-huh.
Sidney Poitier's character, I forget what.
They call me
scene.
Mr.
Yeah,
Tibbs.
that's what
They
you
call me
call
Mr.
me.
Tibbs,
Call me
right.
Mr.
Call me
What do
Mr.
they
Tibbs.
call you back home or whatever? He said,
Yeah.
well, call me
Me,
Mr.
Mr.
Tibbs.
Tibbs, right.
And he asked, what they call you, boy?
Right, right, there you go. There you go.
Drew
Did you
said
go
his
through that?
father used to live in Lincolnville.
Lincolnville, I said
That's where he
Lincoln
said he
Village.
used to live.
Lincolnville
His father,
Lincolnville,
was,
okay.
was the proper,
Okay, okay,
term for it.
yeah. Wow.
Do you remember the times when, in high school, we had a period where we would not accept being called boy? And actually, that's what we were in high school, we were boys,
Right.
cause we weren't adults, but we were boys, but, you know,
How would I
we
put
were
it?
highly offended. This was during
Okay.
the seventies when we were
Okay,
being conscious about blackness, and we were
Yeah.
highly offended.
yeah, well,
If-
that
if
kind of
somebody
time,
called us
yeah,
boy.
boy, or touch your head, you know, don't
Yeah.
touch my head, yeah, that you read, that's a fight there.
Touch your head.
Yeah, don't put your hand on my head, yeah, so, yeah, not so much
And
of
they
that,
felt,
but yeah,
they
don't
felt
touch my head.
privileged to,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do
don't touch
do
my
those
head,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
things.
don't touch my head, so, yeah.
But that boy thing,
Yeah,
and I thought about it, I said, we actually were boys.
yeah, yeah, okay.
But I think all of us saw Roots.
Yeah, there you go. And those are the kind of movies I can't watch anymore, you know, Roots, Mississippi Burning. You know, I love Sounder, you know, growing up, I can't watch Sounder, you know, some of those old movies I can't. She, you know, she can watch them, I can't.
You certainly
I
can't watch
Yeah, I
12, what is it, 12 days?
Yeah, 12 years a slave, I didn't watch that,
What
or
about
Django.
Django?
Yeah, I don't watch that, I don't watch that
You didn't
stuff.
see, Tubman?
No, I don't watch that stuff, yeah, I don't watch that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, don't watch it. Like I say, I would have never chose this book, Drew, family, he chose this book, it was a great read, Drew. Yeah, shout out to Drew, who would
Shout out,
normally
Drew.
be here, yeah, he would
Yeah.
normally be here, but he's not feeling good. Drew would be, he chose this book, and I wish he, you know, were here to talk about it, but, when you get better, we'll talk about the next book, you know, so. But, yeah, that was that, so.
Yeah, it's one of those books you can just read over and over
Yeah,
again and find something different each time you read it.
Mhm.
So, what a great conversation, guys.
Yeah, Yeah, so, get this book and read it, read it, you know, we have it here in our bookstore, you know, Print
One
Word.
question, so
Uh-huh.
Huckleberry Finn, of course, was a part of required reading
Mhm.
at a lot of schools back in the day. Would you recommend this book, James, to be on
The
teacher's
required-
reading list?
Yes, I
required
would,
reading
yes, I would, most
But
definitely.
I
Yeah.
can see them trying to ban
Yeah, they were banned it, yeah.
But-
Yeah, because again, this comes from James's perspective, so yeah, no doubt.
it. And anything they ban, it's up to us as, parents, up to the parents to make sure our children read.
Mhm.
And go back to even the African days when they just passed down from generation to generation. They didn't have books, they
Mhm.
passed the stories down,
Mhm.
and that's how it got
Mhm.
through generations.
Yep, so like, Mr. Slim Overton said, early on, you know, here at the Printed Word, we promote reading, especially with kids. We host story time here. We,
Show you the bookshelf here.
yeah, we host story time, kids ages 4 through 9. We have it at least twice a month. On Saturdays at 11:30. Sometimes we have different readers come in, or I'll read to them, and every kid leaves with a free book. We partner with organizations that give us books that we can't sell, so we ensure that the kids leave here with the book so they can build their own library. Then we have another book club, Boys in the Books. Those are boys ages 6 through 9. I have a father that helps me along with it. You know, we have about 5 or 6 boys that are in that. And same thing, we read a book, we process it as a group, and then they leave with the book as well. And then we have our Men Read Book Club here, you know, the 4 of us, and there's a couple others that are part of it that weren't able to make it with us tonight. Men Read, and then there's a book club for women here, you know, that my wife has, and, you know, some of her friends, you know. So again, we're all about reading here. Reading is the window to the world. Reading is very important, and with young people, we encourage, you know, reading. Kids are always in their cell phone, we know that, we get that. But we want kids to be able to open up pages and read too, because when they get to college, you know, like my man here, or trade school, or the military, whatever have you, you're gonna have to know how to read. Yeah, you're gonna have to know how to read, so, That's what we're all about here at the Printed Word.
Did you get the address?
5901 Churchland Boulevard,
You have a
in Churchland.
Facebook page?
Yeah, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, The Printed Word. Yeah, The Printed Word, on Facebook and Instagram, where we advertise everything, and we have something for everybody. We have over 3,000 books in the store, so we have something for everyone, because we have a very diverse crowd that comes in our store. Very, very diverse crowd that comes in, and got something for everybody. Something for everybody.
And if some of you watching out there have a book suggestion, please put it in the
Yeah.
comments, and we'll see it, and we'll try to pick it up and make it one of our books in the future.
Drew said he didn't pick this book. Was
We
it?
did? I thought it was Drew. Yeah,
He
Drew, you
said
didn't
it
pick it? I
wasn't
thought
him.
you did pick it, Drew.
Drew
Or
picked-
Tony? I thought Drew picked, yeah.
Drew picked the.
Make you wanna holler, or the no, he just the
Miseducation.
miseducation, yeah. So who picked this one? I thought Drew did.
It might have been me, yeah.
Might have been you, okay, yeah, from Tony, so Tony
Okay.
picked it, yeah, Tony
Yeah.
picked
I
it.
think we had, I
Good
got my,
selection.
Yeah,
so,
okay, Tony picked this, okay.
I
Gotcha.
thought it was me, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, okay.
You said which book Drew picked?
Miseducation of the Negro by
Carter G.
by Carter G. Woodson,
Woodson,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, Miseducation
And
of
then
the
he
Negro.
did Makes Me Wanna
Makes
Holler.
me wanna holler by Nathan McCall,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, who's from this area, from P-Town, yeah, Nathan McCall, yeah.
So no telling where we go next.
Next, yeah, And if y'all wanna join, come on and join. We meet every month, and, again, we talk about the book, and then we talk about a number of different things. We talk about life, we talk about relationships, we talk about what it's about being a man, and how to serve your community, and just a bunch of good dudes, just like how we talk in the barbershop, same thing over here, it's the same principle.
Barbershop talk.
Barbershop talk.
I'd like to have a conversation about politics, but one thing about the politics, don't want everybody that thinks the same. We'd like to have some people that maybe from the right and from the left.
All are welcome
And
here.
that kind of communication sometimes helps you understand. You might not agree, but at least you might understand where they're coming from.
That's true.
So don't shy away if you feel like we are a certain way. I don't know everybody's affiliation here, but if you're to the left or to the right, we need to talk. We need to have a conversation. Because I need to understand some of the things that the right is coming from. I need to understand that. And if it turns into a debate, so be it.
And I need to know where the left is coming from too, where are they? Yeah, where is the left?
Yeah, where
are
all
they?
at?
Yeah, where y'all at? Yeah, yep, so there you go.
There you go. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. We appreciate it, and we'll see
Take care.
you
Be
next
blessed.
time.
All
Thank you
right.
for the owners of the Printed Word Bookstore.
All right. All right.
And my man here that went to, what's the name of that school again?
Bowie State
Bowie
University.
State University.
And I get on him a lot because Bowie State is a big rival of my school, Virginia Union University. And you said you ran track. How did y'all do against, we had a pretty good track team.
Yeah, that was a solid track team. We didn't do, based off, me being there, we didn't do what we wanted to do versus Virginia Union. But yeah, I've been years before, like we
Yeah.
have, and of course
It goes back
football.
and forth.
Yeah, back and forth, football, basketball, track, anything like that, so.
But it's all HBCU.
There you go.
It is,
That's
we
it.
all,
That's it.
And cherish our HBCUs.
Definitely.
All right, we going this time. Take care.
All right. Good job, gentlemen. Good job. Good job. We did it with the four of us. Did it with the four. How'd that go?
That was
That was
good.
good, it was good, yeah.
I enjoyed it, that was good,
Tony, you did well taking the lead.
that was good.
Yeah, yeah, you did well. You did well.
Yeah, real good.
I thought we could talk more about politics, I was expecting that.
Oh, yeah, but yes, Slim, I'm gonna throw in some politics now. Slim, I'm gonna throw it in.